back and back in action for Barber this weekend. We got a lot to talk about today, and we got a lot of time on our hands today. This IndyCar podcast is, I think we're in what, episode 4 now?
Mm-hmm.
So the advantage to you guys watching is we have a lot of time to be able to answer your lineup questions, your strategy questions. We answer them in the order that they come in. So if you have them, start getting them in. We're here to answer anything about who you need to add, who you need to remove. Give us specific scenarios, and we'll take as much time as we have after we get through some of the core details of the show today to get to your questions. Before we get started, some quick introductions. My name is Ross. I'm the founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, Ryan Booth, Director of Business Operations, William Laddie, our Principal Software Engineer here at GridRival, and increasingly more showing up as a guest on our IndyCar show, Chase Holden.
What's that?
The only person on the show that can say he's like a certified qualified content creator. We're just all just trying to get by. So we're glad that Chase can join us and be a voice for the IndyCar fans. Reminder before we get going to like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, so that you don't miss any of these updates. And let's see, anything else? Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Quick review of Long Beach. We had 14 drivers go up in value. At the top of the roster, we had Kiffin Simpson, Stingray Robb, Louis Foster, all up 2 million. Santino Ferrucci and Robert Schwartzman up 1.8. Then you had a handful of drivers that were all up between 100,000 and 1.3 million. On the losing side, not as many. You had a lot more drivers that increased in value at Long Beach than decreased in fantasy value. Only one driver dropped the full amount, which was Joseph Newgarden. Definitely some upsets at last event. He dropped 2 million. Pato dropped 1.3. Graham Rahal down 0.7. Rossi down 500,000. McLaughlin down 500,000. Pelot down 500,000. So some pretty big names dropped in value. And some of you might have questions about why Alex Pelot dropped in value, which we might talk about and get into. But going over some of the big winners, the biggest winner, in my point of view, does anyone want to say it? Any thoughts?
Stingray Robb.
There you go. I think Stingray Robb, and again, if you're listening, I'm talking specifically about the fantasy game. So we've been really specific about how we built this game, how we structured points. If you look at most fantasy sports platforms, outside of motorsports, they reward the whole of the athlete, right? It's not just about one specific thing. And in racing, it's not just about finish position, right? There's overtakes, there's lap led. There's something that we call improvement points. So we track a driver's kind of average, and we say, hey, if they're a driver that on average finishes 14th, but they finish second, right? That's like what we consider an outstanding performance. And so Stingray Robb, I believe, finished, ninth at Long Beach. So he was second in fantasy points overall. Had a really incredible race. Also some gaps the other way. So Alex Pelot finished second, but actually came 7th in fantasy points, and that's for the same reason. Alex Pelot is in one of the better performing cars and teams. He is likely and expected normally to finish at the top of the charts, and I don't remember exactly where he qualified, but my gut is like he probably didn't close the gap much between where he qualified and where he finished. If anything, maybe lost positions, and so he had a larger gap between where he finished and his fantasy points. And then another example is Ferrucci, 11th place, but 4th in fantasy points. So lots of fun stuff to talk about today. Anyone want to kick off with winners, losers coming out of Long Beach and going into this week, and maybe who we think is undervalued?
I think the lowest hanging fruit undervalue wise is Joseph Newgarden, who ended up last simply because of a retirement. I think it was a mechanical thing. Maybe there was some contact involved. It's been a bit since Long Beach, so I don't recall the details, but no fault of his own. He lost 2 million. There's no reason a Penske car can't be contending for wins like most weeks. So yeah, that's the easy choice.
I like that choice. Anytime you have kind of a top ranked blue chip driver like that DNFs and immediately loses $2 million, which is the full price amount you can lose as a driver in this game. typically that's a good time to pick that person up because the likelihood that Joseph drops further or certainly in the same increment again are pretty low.
Well, it'll happen if there's a DNF. Like that's a
Pretty much
new,
the only scenario.
new player tip of a blue chip driver DNFs pretty much guaranteed to drop the full 2 million. But I would say Penske as a whole. I don't want to steal anyone else's thunder because I know there is some thunder on Scotty Mac, but Will went up 100K. I'm not touching Will at 27.3 right now. But coming into Barber, McLaughlin or Newgarden should be on your lineups, in my opinion. Debate me.
Debate me.
McLaughlin for sure.
I would say, unless you were an idiot and there was a big user error and you have McLaughlin locked out for Barber,
Yeah.
which some people on the show might have done on accident.
Ooh.
On accident or because we're idiots? Which one is it?
Because I'm an idiot. Although
Because you're an idiot.
this idiot is running away with the GridRival league. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a little bit of good, a little bit
accidents
of bad.
happen, and accidents happen in fantasy sports. Sometimes people get lucky.
I would say it's probably a good time for you to look into Will Power. He's probably the next best guy up coming up here at Barber. And I mean, he's sitting right now at 27.3 mil. So definitely going to have to pay a little bit more for him than Scotty Mac. But if you've got this Scotty Mac lockout, Power's your best next bet, I would say.
You're going
Yeah,
Power over Newgarden?
I want both
I would
Penske's.
Yeah, I would take Power over Newgarden here at this track specifically, mainly because, we've seen Power be pretty consistent here. I mean, he finished second at this track last year.
Mm-hmm.
He also topped the test that was at Barber back in early March. So in early March, we had some pretty interesting numbers. Not everybody that was in the field in IndyCar went to this test, but Power was one of them. And there was a couple other guys we can get into in this, and I can try to get those results pulled up for us as well to look at. But I would say Scotty Mac is the number one for Penske this weekend. But in Ryan's case, like he said, if you are locked out with him, Power's going to be your next best bet. I would take him over Joseph this weekend.
Okay, so I don't disagree, but I think it's good discourse for the fans.
Agreed.
But are you taking Power then on a one race contract, or are you taking him through Sancio and Indy?
I would look to take him on a one race contract just for this one at Barber because of the consistency. He also is in contention to be the first driver to win this race 3 times. There has not been another driver other than Will Power, Ryan Hunter-Reay back in the early 2010s, and then Joseph Newgarden as well. So Newgarden is in the hunt to be the first driver to win this thing 3 times, but only Scotty Mac is in contention to win this thing 3 times in a row. So, I mean, it's a Penske weekend. Penske owns this place. One contract for Will Power. And if you are looking with Newgarden, if you do want to go with Newgarden, I don't think it's the worst. I will say that I don't think he finished that great at this track last year. But what I do know is that we have big ovals coming up. And when you have big ovals coming up, you're going to want Joseph Newgarden in the mix for you. I think William was talking about how a 5-race contract right now will lock you in through Gateway. So
That's right.
I would be all aboard if you're looking to get a driver for multiple races, then that's your guy. But if you're looking for just you need to get these quick points and then get ready for oval season, go Power this week.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me that you don't want Power beyond one race. He is usually a podium threat at the Indy Road Course, which is where we're heading next week. So do we ever go 2 races on Power, which would leave him locked out for Indy?
That's got to be up to the user. I know for me personally, I would prefer to pass over the Sancio Grand Prix and then be able to get him back for the Indy 500. I mean, he hasn't had the best Indy 5s as of late, but he's always going to be there on those ovals too. So Power still has the gas when he needs it there. But I don't know if I would be doing much of to contract anything with Penske drivers right now, just because I do not want to take that risk of not having Penske guys for the 500.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to strategically as a player, where are you on the spectrum of focusing more on value or more on points? I'm just, me personally, I'm like too much of a value player, probably to my detriment, to want to sign someone at the top this early in the season when a guy like Newgarden dropped. But I'm also ranked 11,000 on the leaderboard. So just, take my advice with a grain of salt. What else do we see on the board this week as far as maybe value? Who we think is undervalued? Pato also dropped. Only ranked 6th though, so maybe not a huge deal.
I would say if you're looking specifically at like the most recent results, which are the test results, one guy that really stood out at the Barber test was Christian Rasmussen. He was second, right behind Will Power, and they talk a lot about how at this track you're going to want a guy that's got a thick, sturdy build. Like you want a thick boy when you're running out there at Barber. And I don't know much about it. It's mainly just because of how physically demanding this track is. You got a couple of guys that have that fullback type build, Rasmussen, though, was very impressive with Ed Carpenter Racing. And I don't think that I think maybe there's been 1 or 2 races where we've seen some decent finishes with ECR, but it's way more driver related than anything. But I will say that the fact that he tested that well definitely interests me. And I mean, he's only 7.4 million. He just dropped 100K as well. So if you're looking at bottom of the barrel value right there, I wouldn't mind rolling the dice on him this weekend.
He might have been one of the most undervalued plays at the start of the season too. I mean, he the first 2 races he finished 15th and 12th. He went up $2 million each event.
He's hungry.
And based off of his current rank on GridRival, which is 20th, and if you consider, Long Beach maybe more of an outlier compared to the first 2 races, rated 15th, 12th, and then 23rd. I think that you're right. He probably still, I would say he's definitely not at his ceiling in terms of price. It doesn't feel like it.
I like Rasmussen.
Yeah,
and I like that organization as we get into Indy in particular. ECR is always a threat at the Indy 500. So Rasmussen and Rossi, for that matter, are going to become a lot more intriguing as we go through May.
And if you're lucky enough to be locked out of McLaughlin and Rasmussen this weekend, like some of us on this show, I might pivot towards Foster as another cheap guy. He looks strong in Long Beach. I know he just went up 2 million, but I think there's still a little room to grow there. So that's the guy I'm going to look at for my cheap driver in place of someone like Rasmussen.
How do we feel about Pato? Any opinions? Is he kind of where he belongs at 6th place, 22 million, or is there any value there?
It's been shaky this year for him.
It has.
And I mean, you could even argue that that maybe he's not the best McLaren driver right now.
I like his teammate more this weekend.
Yeah, like Lundgaard might actually be the better McLaren driver right now.
Yeah. At 22.2 to timing, because Lundgaard's 21 and Pato's 22.2. Pato, I think, is going to be a timing thing. So it's about picking when Pato is going to be on a hot streak, because I think there is value there. There is some millions to make on an upswing, and he just lost 1.3. But I think it's going to be about nailing the timing of when to sign Pato. Love Pato. I have him on one of my lineups, and I'm not dropping him. But the other lineup, I'm not signing him. So that's where I'm at with Pato going into Barber.
Lundgaard definitely leading the McLaren group, 8th place, 3rd place, 3rd place, first 3 races. I think Pato, you're right. It's been a little bit more of a roller coaster. He's 11th, 2nd, and 13th. While we are on the topic of McLaren drivers, Nolan Siegel managed to go up in value last week, despite he was on a heater of a lap, the last qualifying lap, and then Christian Lundgaard red flagged it, so he didn't get a full lap in, started late, and then got food poisoning. So a rough go. 25th, 19th, 20th so far. Had some bad luck in St. Pete. I feel like, to me, he's obviously in a car that has way, way more potential than 19th. I've been strong on him since the start of the season. I feel like there's been bad luck. I feel like at 19th place and 7.6 million, it seems like has the potential to be a huge bargain if we get some events going forward that he's able to have success in.
Barber's going to be a new track for him in an IndyCar. I would like to see a weekend where nothing goes wrong for him and see what he can really do, because he's got a lot more in the tank than we've seen from these results.
I agree.
And I think when we get to the Indy 500, he's going to be out for revenge a little bit.
And if you remember from Long Beach, Michael and I were actually there, and Nolan's kind of a friend of the show, so we actually got to sit on pit wall there for a couple minutes. He was first in practice. I think the last practice round he was first place in. So I definitely feel like he has a lot of speed, and really haven't seen him come out yet. And I think from a value point of view, I think I have him on so he's on a team that 2 races left for me. But like, if he wasn't on my team, I could see myself bringing him back for 4 or 5 events, just because I think the upside is so significant. And you kind of, at some point, you have to think of like the first, St. Pete was bad luck. Long Beach was definitely bad luck. Like, at some point that streak's going to end. You'd have to think.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to drive it into a direction a little bit more back towards the Honda way. I feel like one driver that we can mention here, it's 17 million right now. And somebody that I would not mind having at this track and at Sancio and potentially at the Indy 500 is Felix Rosenquist with Meyershank Racing. A lot of people know that Meyershank has had some technical alliances now with Chip Ganassi and Andretti. So this year they've kind of got their new partnership that they have with Ganassi now, that they've been able to share a lot more information. Felix, though, even before that, he finished 4th at this track last year. Another guy with kind of a stocky build. I feel like that could be a guy right there that you could get right under the 20 mark that you could kind of fill in. He just went up $1 million as well, but he's somebody that is always kind of a threat, at least for a top 6 at this track. I don't think we're going to see him outside of that this week. And there's also some rumblings about Marcus Armstrong, which is his teammate, and he's at 12.8 million. And a lot of people, he's kind of been like my talent driver. He's kind of been the guy that I've been like my go-to, just kind of waiting on him to pop out. So the Meyershank Racing boys at Honda, they definitely have a little bit of sauce at Barber this weekend, and it can carry you forward with another road course race and then getting to the Indy 500. People forget, I know it's all about the driver, but Helio Castroneves back in 2021 won this thing for Meyershank Racing. So they know what it takes to win at this track. These are 2 guys you don't want to miss out on, and their price gaps are pretty significant. But Rosenquist definitely over Armstrong, I would say, would be a great play going into this weekend as well if you're just looking for like a 1 racer. But I would even extend that out to 2 or 3.
I have Rosenquist on a 2 racer for the exact same reason. Right now, I'm not extending it to a 3 for the Indy 500. I might change my mind there, but I totally agree. I have Rosenquist for Barber and Sancio.
I feel like every single week I've been jumbling the Marcuses and Felix. It's like one of them is on my team, 2 of them are on my team. I've never had none of them. My one hesitation with Rosenquist is I don't really want him to lose talent driver eligibility under my contract, but it's kind of a good problem to have, because I guess if he does that, he did pretty well. So
yes,
unfortunately, I'm locked out of Rosenquist and Lundgaard.
R.I.P.
It's gonna be a bad week for me. Good thing I got Scotty Mack.
Yeah, that will
good
help.
for you.
And friendly reminder to all the new players: Rosenquist is at 17 million. He is talent driver eligible up until 17.9. As soon as he hits 18, whether he is under contract or not talent driver eligible. So plan your lineups accordingly if you're banking on a multi-race contract with Rosenquist as your talent driver. Performance 900K, you're out of talent driver. Yeah, that's the threshold. Oh, one sidetrack. I really wanted to mention this because it's something you don't. As Ross said, we got to be on the pit wall for with Nolan for a little bit, so you don't really get that experience until you're there. And I'm going to segue into this as something relevant. Prima had a great showing in the game for Long Beach, and I will say, style points to Prima on their entire pit setup. All of their golf carts and utility vehicles have rims. The colors are fantastic. The uniforms are all. I don't think that Prima gets enough credit on camera of how sick their setup is compared to even the biggest teams. Like we were set up next to Penske, and doesn't stand out. You go by the Prima booth. Oh man, it is style points, and then they came home with some big wins. So Schwartzman at 7.1 and Ilott at 5.4. I've been taking them on the bottom of the roster. There's a lot of upside here. I think I almost had a photo op opportunity with Stingray Rob. He was standing right next to me. It was right before they were going to get into the car, so I just felt like it was inappropriate. But I felt like I could be his good luck charm. He didn't need me, but
Maybe it's because you walked by him.
I think it is. We made direct eye contact. I gave him a head nod. I was gonna ask for the selfie, but I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And
some may argue that it was because they put out a reel where they were like dancing by the haulers,
yeah,
before this started out. Interesting nugget about him. Apparently he has some really cool nicknames. There was some like old guy that used to give him crap for being named Stingray. So he would always call him like stick shift or speed bump. And I just found that incredible. So every time I see him now, I call him stick shift.
yeah,
And that's kind of that's been the move. But yeah, he very proud of him. And to your point with Prima, they're kind of the finesse kings. They really are. I would say if they were able to produce the level of points that they could probably get for how they create reels on Instagram and how they display themselves, dude, they would be at the top of the list right now. That's a guarantee. They could potentially be in the salary places of Alex Palou if that were possible. So
I like it.
Also,
Yeah,
Tiger Squid emphasizing what we all obviously already know, that Stingray Rob was a very big eye contact guy.
Yeah.
What's that even mean?
He will stare into your soul, dude.
Yeah.
He will.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Another driver I feel like has been kind of a sleeper since the start of the season, Ryan's VK. Up in value every race. 2,500K, 1.2, 9th, 17th, 19th. He's only still at 8.5 million. I feel like he's done very well. 18th place. Is he a potential value play? If you're needing to fill out some of those, bottom spots with something in the 5, 6, 7, 8 million range.
Dude, he's got talent, man. When you look back at his record, and I want to get this race right, because there was one race I remember back when he was running with ECR. He ended up having like a really good finish. I think he finished 16th in 2023, so it may have been 2022 when I went to that track, but I know that they were all like very just impressed with his runs that he had, and I'm kind of like sifting through records right now. But he came out strong at St. Pete, and I don't think anybody saw that one coming, especially with the team that he's with. And people sometimes can weigh the team that a driver's on a little bit more and not give the driver as much credit than they should. And we have to remember at the end of the day that these cars are very similar. It is very setup based, but
For sure.
the driver is who is really the engine behind this thing at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And he has proven himself time and time again. So yeah, looking at VK, he finished this race with ECR in third, and that was 2022 with ECR. So he knows this track well. So it might be a good time to kind of like pick him up, especially going back to Indy where everybody's kind of on their game. Drivers like Renus will be the one that you'll want to kind of like look at for value down there with like Rasmussen. And honestly, now that we're talking about him, he may actually be the best value, in my opinion, out of all of these guys down here under 10 million. So I may have to flip a little bit. I still think Rasmussen is a great gamble if you're trying to find a guy just to roll the dice on. But if you want somebody that has proven results at this track, even though they're with a different team, VK is the one that I would be looking at to maybe extend out a little bit more on. And I just don't think a lot of people were giving him enough credit at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I agree.
I threw VK on my tentative lineup this morning. It's like I want to run VK, Foster, and then the Penske's and one other one in the talent range. That's kind of how I'm trying to structure the lineup.
I'm probably avoiding VK myself this week. It's not so much a VK issue as a Dale Coyne Racing issue. I don't know how close to the ceiling we are with that team where they're at right now. That's my one hesitation with VK. He is a heck of a driver, though, and we have seen him overachieve before. So, yeah, I could be wrong. I've been wrong a lot of times this year. So, yeah, as far as that tier, I'm more interested in like a Siegel or a Rasmussen.
That is a tough tier because who he's centered around is, I mean, there's just a lot of great opportunity in that price range.
You have Kevin Simpson just above him driving for Chip Ganassi Racing. Is Simpson starting to find the pace in what is clearly a better car? Like if I could choose between driving for Ganassi or Coyne, there's really no question. Like as far as contending for wins.
So to plug a feature in the app, because I do this for the under 10 million drivers, I consider Malukas as 10.1. Oh, in your league, click on the driver on the driver's list, then look at the league adoption. Under 10 million, it skews one driver very heavily in every league I'm in right now. And that is between Malukas and VK. So everyone else is like couple percentage points. Malukas and VK are 18, 20, 25 the last time I checked between the IndyCar leagues that I'm in. So the popular vote is them two. So let me introduce you to the contrarian play strategy. When you're making a selection and you're seeing that there's a high league adoption in that bracket that you're making a price in, even if you think that that's a good choice, the second best choice that you could make could net you way more points than the rest of your league if a lot of your league is playing that driver. So if a lot of people are playing VK, you have to decide, is that the smart move or is that just a popular pick, right? And the smart move is somewhere else within that, within that lineup, spending a little bit more or a little bit less. And then if that person that you believe is a smart pick has a very low league adoption percentage, that means you're getting points very few other players are getting. And that could be the difference between you jumping a spot and you staying in your spot, right? Because if you're playing the same selection that someone else is playing, that's a push. You're both scoring the same amount of points with that driver, right? So if your whole lineup has the highest league adoption in your league, odds are you're going to have a lot of overlap with other players in your league. So I always like to make some strategic moves where I'm going with a lower league adoption score. And I like to do that at the bottom of the pricing barrels of.
And how much of that strategy is based off of number of league players? Like, do you feel like you're doing that in large leagues or more? I feel like it's more critical in smaller leagues, right? Where the odds of you being contrarian are bigger.
I base it off the IndyCar official league, which I believe is the largest IndyCar league that we have in the app. So right now, Malukas and VK are the two most popular sub 10 million. Then it's a steep drop off to everyone else. So that just screams to me that there's a contrarian play to have there at some, there's a contrarian play to have there.
Let's you want to pivot? You want to make a little pivot into some picks?
Yeah.
Some better worses. We're gonna for everybody. I think most people on the show are probably based in the United States. So we have a picks game where you can play for real money. It's very, very simple to play. So I think we should just go through a couple of these and see what you guys think. I'm going to start Pato better or worse than fourth place. Personally, for me, I think it'd be taking the worse. And it might work against me. Just looking at like his performances, we talked earlier, like we say, he's been on kind of a roller coaster. So I may regret it. This may be the race where like he kind of has a little bit of a comeback. Like if we're talking about statistically speaking, if he hasn't, been up in these ranks, this might be the race that we see it happen. But I think I'd be going worse on Pato at 4.5. What do you guys think?
Just to get it out of the way, I'm going to recuse myself from the better worse discussion.
All right.
I'll do Newgarden better than 5th because I'm rocking Newgarden on the league with Scotty Mac. But
we're talking about Pato right now. We'll get to Newgarden.
No, but I thought we were all doing one pick.
No, we're talking about individual picks, each person's opinion.
Oh, okay.
We can do Newgarden next.
Then I gave my piece. I agreed with you.
Okay.
Yeah, give me Pato worse as well. Pato's got to prove it for me at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat. Like you wanna see that proving ground. Like he did finish 4th here in 2023. But I mean, we can look back at the history here. He won in 2022, and then it seemed like it started just kind of going downward. So I don't know if it's much of just like what's happening in the building with McLaren, but I think we all made the point kind of that we like Lundgaard a little bit more this weekend with the McLaren camp. So Pato really nowhere to be found inside the top 10 from this race last year. Maybe he'll get on the horse after the Sancio Grand Prix. So I'm going to be in agreement as well, and I'll say worse than 4.5.
Okay. Well, let's go to Newgarden. Michael,
Better.
we got Michael's taking better. Right now, Newgarden's at 5 flat.
Yes.
That means that there's a potential if you haven't played the game before. If he finishes exactly 5th, that pick would push. Basically means if you have like a 4-pick entry, it'd become a 3-pick entry because Newgarden would push. So just something to consider playing some of the lines where it's a whole number versus a half number. So we're saying better than 5th.
Better than 5th.
You're going comeback.
Pato's at 4.5. Hurt is at 5.5. McLaughlin and Power are both above him. So I think that's the move. Is I think the only one that has a little bit of wiggle room there is I'm taking Pato worse, Newgarden better.
This is where I agree as well, because you look at the races where Newgarden has faced adversity, like, this seatbelt issue that happened in Long Beach. Penske's kind of had that. They had that with Will Power last year at Nashville too. So they are actively working on getting some of those small issues together. But Newgarden understands the importance of this season in particular. And I'm at a point where anytime I have a chance to potentially push and help out some other areas, I want to take that. But it's not just because of that. It's because I don't see a world where Newgarden doesn't finish outside of the top 5 this weekend because of what's on the line, because everybody knows Scotty Mac's going for that 3-peat, Will Power and him. I just really feel good about Penske as a whole. I mean, I'm ready to possibly say that we could see an all Penske podium.
I was going to ask you that. If
That's a hot take.
Yeah, if Penske sweep the podium, I would be very interested to see the fan reaction.
Same. Maybe that's why we want it a little bit. I don't know.
Every internet sleuth is going to be watching in-cam footage to look for push the pass button pressing. There.
So if you think Penske is potentially a podium, then let's move on to the next Penske driver. Will Power's at 4, so obviously we know where you think better, worse than. But McLaughlin at 2.5. So you think he's taking that 2nd spot or that 3rd spot?
We're talking about Scotty Mac.
Yep.
If I think he's taking the 2nd I think he's taking the 1st spot.
Or you think he's podium? So you're better than 2.5 then.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, I don't know if I would actually pick Scotty Mac in my DFS lineups this week. I'm going to leave it at that just because I don't like to flirt too close to those kind of numbers. Yeah. But I will say that that if you believe Scotty Mac's going to win the race, how can you not have better on that, in your lineups? I just personally, I know that there's a lot more drivers on here that I would want to play around with for a lineup this week, but Newgarden being the only Penske guy that I would probably have in my DFS lineup this week.
What's a line that you like?
So a line that I like for Scotty Mac.
No, for any of the drivers on the board right now.
For any of the drivers on the board. One that I'm really interested in is the Felix Rosenquist better than 8 flat. I would take better on that because, for one, a top 5 is not out of the question for him whatsoever. So to have a little bit of cushion on that, I like that a ton. And unless he spins, which he did spin at the test in Barber, but it's good to get the spins out at the test before the race. So I don't think we're going to have much issue with him this weekend. And if I would say this, at worst, we may get him right at 8. And it would just be the tearjerker of the century to have him at 9. But I definitely am very comfortable with a Felix top 10. So with him being right there at 8, I would say I would be good going better on that one.
Anyone else? Any hot picks on the board? Any hot takes? Michael, William?
Yeah, I might be in the other camp on some of these Penske drivers. Like I might say McLaughlin better, Power better, Newgarden worse. If you look at the last couple of years, Penske's double podiums Alabama, and the odd man out was Newgarden. In fact, he hasn't had a good result at Alabama since before the pandemic. So
Interesting.
Newgarden has been extremely consistent. He's also going in the wrong direction. He was 14th in 22, 15th in 23, and then 16th in 24. So you can pencil him in for 17th this year.
Yeah. Or the epic bounce back.
Exactly. It's like, how many times can a guy that good perform that poorly at a track?
That's what I'm saying.
And like, it gets crowded at the top. Like, Palou is really good. Dixon is really good. Power, McLaughlin, that's like 4 drivers there. You could have an Andretti driver produce another result. They won at Long Beach, and Herta and Kirkwood have both looked really good. So somebody's got to be the odd man out.
And then another Stingray top 10.
There you go.
Do we got Stingray on the board?
Not right now.
Not yet.
Not
He'll
yet.
be up there.
He'll be up there. So right now we got a 4 pick. This is a team 4 pick. Now, if you're listening to the show and you haven't played picks, the guys who built the game are giving you our advice. So like, this is a 4 pick. If you get all 4 of these right, you win what 10 times your money. So $10 entry gets $100. I got Pato worse than 4.5. McLaughlin better than 2.5. Felix Rosenquist better than 8th. Joseph Newgarden better than 5th. This is full disclaimer. There's no guarantee that we are right. But anyways, if you haven't tried it, we'd encourage you to try it. We match all first deposits, by the way, 100%, up to $100. So if you've never played picks and you want to play for the first time, you put $25 in, we will give you another $25 to play all the way up to 100. So just a little plug for that game. Any other closing thoughts on better or worse? We don't have matchups yet for IndyCar. Is that we're going to have those up this week?
Today.
Yep.
Today.
Yeah.
So matchups, of course, we're mostly talking about better or worse finish positions. We also have matchups where you can kind of pick between 2 drivers, like which one is going to finish higher than the other.
Yeah.
So those will be out this afternoon too.
I would tell you, just click profile in the app, click notifications, and then make sure IndyCar is in green in the bubble. If IndyCar is in green, we will send out push notifications when things go live and things come back, and we'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah. We roll stuff out throughout the week. So by the end of the day today, we'll have most of the rest of the grid up along with matchups. And I can tell you, you will not find Robert Schwartzman lined anywhere else except GridRival.
That's right. And you won't find, are we going to do qualifying?
Yes.
Maybe,
qualifying will be up probably tomorrow morning, potentially tonight. But
definitely
yes,
nowhere else that you can, we might be one of the only apps that allows you to make paid entries on IndyCar, period. For sure, probably the only one qualifying. We know that from some of the tweets we've gotten about it. So before we finish, is there any Q&A? I didn't see really. I think there's one question about should I only pick drivers for one race at a time? We kind of asked that, but like you want to hit on that, Michael?
Yeah. So just basic lineup contract length advice is For IndyCar specifically, this doesn't really pertain to some of the other sports. You want to look ahead at the calendar because of the difference between road courses and ovals. You want to make sure that you have strong oval drivers for that are not locked out for ovals, and strong road course drivers that aren't locked out for road courses. So you do want to look ahead in the calendar a little bit there just to make sure. um uh what I like to do and how I've been successful with the game in the past, I'm always letting 2 to 3 drivers roll off every single race. That allows me to have enough lineup flexibility where I could be picking up drivers who I think are going to perform at the next race or the next couple races relative to the person who I had just signed. So like someone like Nolan Siegel, I'm going 5 races. I'm locked out of him for Indy 500. Then I'm taking him for another 5, right? I'm long on him being a kind of upwards trajectory, going to gain me money over time. Other drivers, whether they're blue chip or at the bottom, I typically stick to 2 to 3 race contracts at most. This way I can have a lot of flexibility with managing open spots in my lineup. If you have a lineup of all drivers on one contract, you're locked out of those drivers for the next race. It's just too limiting. Like you to have all 6 be locked out to then have to make another lineup of 6 that's still competitive. You still want people carrying some amount of drivers carrying over week to week.
Well said. There's no other questions.
There was one.
There was.
Yeah.
Where did I miss?
Oh, I guess it isn't really a question. With lineup review,
Yeah.
Paolo, Lundgaard, Rossi, Ericsson,
Hello.
VK, and Rob.
Paolo.
I said Paolo. Did I say Pato?
Marco.
Didn't you
Hello.
see those
I'm calling
commercials
Palau.
where they just kept telling us about Alex Palou?
Yeah.
Wait, what did I say?
Paolo.
Paolo, it's
Oh.
Paolo.
Hello.
My bad. Sorry about
It's
that.
okay.
Pato,
There's
you
like
said-
7 different ways to say it.
You said
according
Pato
to
with an
different
L.
People.
Yeah. I might have read Pato and it came out. I might have actually read Pato and it came out sounding more like Palo.
We have been yelled at for mispronouncing driver names before.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that
constantly.
was because we weren't putting on fake European accents.
Hey, I haven't been yelled at yet. I know these guys' names. I've been hitting the books. I've been studying quite hard.
Last season there was an outcry for us to suddenly sound European when we pronounced names or South American. It was, and we decided against that for many reasons.
Okay, so
Charles
Palou,
Leclerc.
That's right.
Palou, Lundgaard, Rossi, Ericsson, VK, and Rob. That's an intriguing lineup, but Palou is a solid contender to win. Lundgaard's a top 5 contender. Rossi, like, we want to see a little bit more. I like Rossi a lot more when we get to the Indy 500 and
Mhm.
his team a lot more when we get to the Indy 500. Like, he's like top end of talent. I'm not sure that he's a fan of Barber. I know that he's struggled a little bit in past years. So for this week, maybe not so much. Ericsson, potential there, maybe a bit pricey. VK, we talked about a bit earlier. There might be better choices at that price point. Some of us like VK, some of us like other drivers better. Stingray Rob, yeah, if we're at that price tier, Stingray Rob, but let's see if he can make it 2 good finishes in a row. I saw a point from Tiger Squid I want to hit on. I wouldn't lock yourself out of Penske, Chip Ganassi, or Meyer Shank for the Indy 500. I would say don't lock yourself out of all of those drivers, but you can only have 6 drivers. So if you're missing one Penske driver, that's fine. There's 2 more to take. You've got 2 solid choices with Ganassi. You've got 2 solid choices with Meyer Shank. And then there's other teams you might want to look at anyway, like Andretti, like Ed Carpenter Racing. So, yeah, I'd say
Like
don't lock yourself out of all of them, but you can only have 6 drivers.
Yeah, and realistically, you can really only afford 2 blue chip guys at a time, especially at the real top echelon of that. So if you got some people locked out, it's not the end of the world.
I'll tell you now, like as we're structuring contract lengths, like remember the lockout rule. Anybody that you have a 2-race contract this week, you don't have them for Indy. I'll tell you who I really want for Indy, who's towards the bottom of the price list. Connor Daly.
Mm.
I want to have Connor Daly available.
You always want that. Always can't counter out at his home track. I will say that he is the Indiana kid. There is one thing, and I'm not just saying this because I do a show with him. I'll never forget my first Indy 500 in 2021 when he took the lead in that Air Force car. it's like when in NASCAR, like when like Chase Elliott or Dale Earnhardt would take the lead at Talladega.
Oh,
That's
interesting.
what it's like. So yeah, you can't count Connor out, and he's always gunning for that win or the best finish he can possibly get. So it doesn't matter what kind of car he's in. That's all up here for him.
Love it.
I also learned NASCAR fans love it. I was down in Miami for Homestead. The cheers when Bubba Wallace got passed for the lead were very loud.
That's very standard these days. Yeah.
Oh, let's see. I think we're in a good spot to end. We got a lot of good topics covered today. So we thank you all for joining. We will be back next week. Is that correct? For the Indy Road Course.
That's right.
strategy
There's a race
call.
next week.
That's right.
Month of May, baby. This is the peak month for IndyCar.
It starts
and
to
we're
pick
here
up,
for it.
and then after after the Indy 500, the cadence of races is pretty heavy through the rest of the summer. So we're here for it. Invite your friends to GridRival if they're not already on it. We thank you everybody for joining the show, and hopefully we see most of you next week again. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the race. All right. Let me stop in Riverside.